Will Germany sink the European Union? Europe's escalating economic, financial, and geopolitical crises are putting increasing pressure on the whole European Union project. They're also unmasking the exalted European unity, quote unquote, for the utter farce that it is. It's become clear that, like most things in the empire of lies, that unity is exactly its opposite as allies turn against allies. Let's remember what Ursula von der Leyen said before the Italian elections, that if the Liberal Party was not to be elected, that they would withhold payments to Italy. Of course, that is totally undemocratic, and it goes for all the European member states. In other words, if a member state does not elect a Liberal Party, they believe they have the right to stop the payments to that member state. That's totally illogical, undemocratic, and against the EU Constitution. Now, destroying Germany's economic lifeline, and this is by A. Kramer on Zero Hedge. Destroying the economic lifeline of Germany, which is, of course, the cheap energy from Russia. Someone blew up Nord Stream pipelines, bringing in cheap, abundant natural gas from Russia to Germany. German economy depended on this resource for nearly 60% of its industrial production. As Zoltan Pozsar suggested, $2 trillion of German value depended on $20 billion of Russian gas. We can't be sure who blew up the pipelines, but the most likely suspects are all Germany's supposed friends and allies: the US, the UK, Poland, Sweden, and Denmark. Of course, we are not talking about those nations' legitimate government structures, but rather the deep state elements within them. One thing that is not in doubt, however, is that Germany, and not Russia, will sustain by far the greatest damage from the sabotage. That was fully well appreciated by all protagonists of this drama, implying that it was a deliberate and premeditated attack on Germany. And yesterday, somebody cut the cables on their German railway system. Now, adding insult to injury, for years, the US had pressured Germany to cancel the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and to cut its dependency on Russian gas. To persuade German leaders, their US counterparts promised to replace Russian gas with American LNG shipments. And as we now know, Germany's friends and allies took advantage of German compliance by delivering natural gas at extortionate prices. According to an energy investment banker, Laure Segalen, U.S. gas suppliers could load a large LNG tanker in the U.S. at a cost of about $60 million per shipment. The cargo could then be sold for up to $275 million in Europe, thanks to the massive price disparity between the U.S. and European markets. In the U.S., natural gas trades at less than $7 MBTU, that's million British thermal units, while Dutch TTF futures recently traded at over 60 per million. That's almost 10 times more. Now, last month, one of the key architects of this catastrophe, Berlin's hapless economy minister Robert Habeck, publicly complained about the situation in an interview to German media. Only yesterday, French economy minister Bruno Le Maire chimed in, "We cannot accept that our American partners sell its LNG 4 times the price at which it sells to its own subsidiaries. But these lamentations come far too late to mitigate the extreme damage to the European economies already." Besieged from all sides, thus together with Poland's bond demand for 1.3 trillion euros in World War II reparations, Germany has suddenly found itself besieged by its friends and allies on many fronts. We know that Greece has never been paid reparations for World War II either. And they claim that they're not going to pay because it's just too late. They should have asked earlier. Well, they were asking every 4 or 5 years, every time we had elections. Now, even though the reactions from Germany, apart from that Habeck interview, have been remarkably quiet, it's easy to imagine that Chancellor Scholz's telephone must be ringing off the hook with angry complaints from German industrialists and labor union leaders, as Hans-Peter Wohlsafer, president of the Central Association of German Crafts, said to the Rheinische Post, "Every day we receive emergency calls from companies that are about to stop production because they can no longer pay the enormous increases in energy bills." The Federation of German Industries, BDI, also warned of a wave of bankruptcies due to energy cost inflation, which is now a major challenge for 58% of companies, while 34% believe that the crisis jeopardizes their very survival. Germany has potentially one reliable partner. The nation is being pushed to destruction, but while this may not be apparent to the unsuspecting consumers of Western corporate media narrative, Germany has found itself in the situation where it may have only one partner to rely on. If you guessed Russia, you guessed correctly. Of course, as a member of the EU and NATO, Germany cannot chart its foreign policy independently, but the pressure to somehow break out of its constraints and reclaim its sovereignty must be growing. German subsidies arms race could sink the EU. One way to go about it would be to sink the EU project altogether, and Chancellor Scholz's announcement on Thursday last week will prove to be a measure in this direction. Scholz announced to the government that, quote, "will do everything it can to bring price of energy down," end quote, announcing a whopping 200 billion euro subsidy package to protect German households and businesses from high energy prices. This package comes on top of previous measures said to be worth 65 billion euros, but that figure could be low. According to data from Bruegel, a think tank cited by Politico, in the 12 months to September 2022, the German government already allocated more than 100 billion euros to support households and firms through the energy crisis, in addition to another 85 billion euros allocated to prop up German energy companies. According to my calculations, that's 185 billion euros, not 65 billion. If other nations take their cue from Germany, this will trigger a subsidies arms race and further fuel the flames of European inflation. The result will be the collapse of the euro, much in the way the ruble inflation was ignited in Russia in 1991. At that time, the IMF obliged Russia to maintain the ruble as a common currency for all Soviet Union successor states, giving each of the 15 new countries the incentive to issue ruble credits for the benefit of their own economies, while fueling inflation for all others. In commenting on Germany's go it alone subsidies, the EU diplomat suggested that this could be the outcome. He says, "We are really risking a subsidy race with some of the EU's largest nations going against one another. The question we cannot easily answer, but will soon find out, is how soon will the EU collapse? What we might never find out is whether Germany is taking her revenge on the EU deliberately." And this is by Alex Craner on a Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.